Hello, everyone, and welcome to Enkrypt AI podcast. I'm Sheetal, a product marketing lead here at Enkrypt AI. So today we are diving into our shared responsibility framework and what it really means for enterprises, particularly around responsibility and accountability as AI evolves at such faster speed. So I'm joined by Enkrypt AI CEO and co-founder Sahil Agarwal and our special guest, Tara, director of the Safe AI for Children Alliance, and and one of the leading women in AI, and one of the key contributors who helped shape Enkrypt AI responsibilities framework. Tara, you bring deep expertise across intelligence, law, ethics, and AI safety, with a mission centered on protecting children from emerging AI risk. Thanks again, Tara, for joining us today. So actually, I want to ask your personal journey. You have moved from, intelligence, law, and ethics from your background, and now you've shifted completely towards, protecting children within the AI space. How did you completely decided putting yourself in this space, and how has your earlier career shaped that mission?
Well, thank you for having me. Like you said, I come from a completely non-tech background. I was an intelligence officer, and so that had literally nothing to do with AI whatsoever. But I think what happened within that role is I've developed a real the kind of mindset for spotting risks ahead of time, and assessing them and developing sort of a strategy to try and mitigate them. I think once you do that kind of career for a while, that becomes quite a natural process, which I then think probably is why I became concerned about AI risks in general quite early on, probably about a decade ago now. And then ended up doing a governance course, an AI governance course at the end of 2024. It was 3 months. And at the end of that, you had to produce a project. So I decided to do a blueprint for the Safe AI for Children Alliance, because the risks for children hadn't been talked about through that time, really. And that's where it went from there. I then decided to actually move forward with doing it for real rather than it just being that project.
Thank you so much. I'll hand it over back to Sahil now.
The point that you just made, like moving from law and ethics to the risks around AI and how do you mitigate them? Because ultimately, like one of the things that, like while we are talking about risks, I do personally believe that AI has a lot of benefits as well across our society.
Definitely.
Not just for enterprises who are from that point, but also as society, we're seeing a lot of benefits in the healthcare sector and financial services sector for people, like actual end users, right?
Yeah.
So how do you think through those like benefits versus risks that come with AI?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because sometimes I do forget to mention that I'm not anti-AI as such. I think there are potential huge, tremendous benefits, particularly like in the areas you mentioned, healthcare, very specifically, but other areas as well. The potential for good is huge. I think one of the reasons I ended up focusing on the risks in a way, one of the reasons is because there's one of the big risks is that we don't get to that amazing future if a ton of things fall apart in the meantime, particularly I would say if we end up harming children in the meantime. So how those things are balanced out, I think that, I don't know if that maybe answers the question. You just like the risks, some of the risks are so huge and so harmful, and that can be on the scale of individual harms to children, societal, going right through to global catastrophic harms that can be so damaging. Yeah, there's that balance, but I do want to emphasize I'm not anti-AI. It can be amazing.
Yeah, 100%. Right. I mean, a lot of people when we talk to, like, we're not asking them to not use AI. We're just asking them to use it responsibly in a manner that doesn't put others at risk. Yeah, 100%. And then on that, right, like when you're talking to regulators, when you're talking to lawmakers, you advise them through different policies, you advise them through how they should be thinking about whether or not to regulate AI, and if they do, how should they think through that. So what has your experience been like? What do you hear from lawmakers and regulators in terms of the risks and the benefits of AI?
I'd say my experience of that has changed through the past year. So I am in the UK, so I can speak mostly to the picture here,
Yeah,
but I'll go back to the US and the global situation. So my experience in the UK is that there is much greater awareness and willingness to talk about regulation in a serious way than there was a year ago. Part of that reason is because of the risks to children, absolutely. But generally, people all around just have better knowledge. MPs have had more time to really interrogate what's going on, come to terms with it, develop that knowledge. So my perception here is that there's more willingness to listen to that and for those discussions to be meaningful. Now, there's definitely an element of that in the US as well. I'm not as well
right,
placed to comment on that
right,
as you will be, but I mean, that's some promising developments in terms of children's safety in
right,
California. It's a new bill just been announced in New York in terms of AI companions
right,
specifically. However, then we've got like just yesterday or the day before, President Trump suggesting that there should be no scope for AI regulation across any states because it's just holding back innovation and China will win, putting it in what I would consider to be quite simplistic terms that don't pay attention to the nuance of what actually is going on. So it's hard to say. On the one hand, it's looking promising, and then you hear that and you think that.
yeah, right. I mean, I think as we discussed, it's while we're looking at innovation, we need to be an innovation that's coming in the future. Uh, Kids are also the future. Children are also our future as a society. As
Yeah,
right. So I think both need to go hand in hand.
yes.
We can't say that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great point.
Innovation, yeah, innovation is a good thing done the right way.
Right.
But we can do innovation in a responsible way,
Yeah.
definitely.
Like, where do you think the responsibility lies? Is it more on parents and education, our education system, to think through what are they exposing to children? Because obviously the internet has a lot of good things and a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
Same thing could be said about AI and any other technology. So where do you think does the responsibility lie on that?
So certainly parents and educators have a really important role to play. So I definitely don't want to say that the responsibility is theirs. I know as a parent, as I'm sure many of us do, it's so hard to keep track of what your kids are doing all the time, especially when they're a bit older, if they've got phones. It's really challenging. But with that said, schools and parents have a role to play, which we can perhaps go back to. But in terms of who the responsibility lies with, I would see many AI systems in this respect as a product that can harm children,
Right.
and therefore the ultimate responsibility lies with the people who put that product out in the world for children to use.
In terms of the risks and the benefits, obviously, one of the things that has come around for AI for the elderly population is for loneliness, right? So you bringing in emotional support, AI companions, but in technology, it's spreading much faster in young teenagers and kids than the elderly that it was supposed to do, right? So how do you think through, or when you're discussing this with policymakers and lawmakers, or discussing it with education systems, how should we think through restricting that, or how should we think through what are safeguards that we could put in place, or different roles and responsibilities that come, whether through the shared responsibility framework or policy framework around risks of AI for children. What are some of the key points that everyone should keep in mind when exposing AI to kids and to the society in general?
Yeah, so the example you mentioned of more elderly people who might be struggling with loneliness, feeling that they have a companion to talk to, I can see how that could be helpful. Also, I could see in the future, in a therapeutic context, if a professional were using AI in some way with a client to move through issues. Even going on to like someone going through grief, I'll come back to that in a sec. But all of these things, I can see how there could be a benefit and how it could work when it's done in development with qualified experts and professionals who make sure that it's designed for that purpose.
Right.
So, for example, if you have just take the example of grief bots, which are AI companions designed to be modeled on someone who's passed away.
Right.
There are huge risks with that with children, but there could be a place for that if it's designed really well with multidisciplinary teams, grief experts who say, oh, no, that's going to be harmful. But actually, if it gives a child an opportunity to talk through this, that could work. Or like if it's just used once, that could be really helpful to get over a sudden loss. Like if those experts come together and find helpful ways to use those tools, great.
Right.
Unfortunately, what has happened is none of that has happened. It's like the technology is there, cool, let's put it out there. And the example I went to with grief bots, like there are grief bots being given to kids for like a grandparent who's passed away, for example, or it could be a parent. So they're able still to talk to that relative who's passed away.
Right.
Now, no one professional has been involved in doing that. We don't know what that does to a child's grieving process. Children, especially young children, genuinely can't distinguish reality from like a synthetic relationship. They genuinely, like the younger ones, just don't have that ability to do that. Even older kids and even adults, like we struggle emotionally to understand that someone's really gone when you experience a loss. We don't know what then happens when that app is taken away from them. Is that what then go through grief again? What if they get addicted to it? Like so many issues that haven't been thought through. So the issue is not could it be helpful, or like are we doing the wrong thing by talking about the risks? Like maybe it could be really helpful if it's done well, but that's just not what's happening. It's just being rushed out there, deployed irresponsibly because the technology is there.
Right. So that's I can see that. But do you think, I mean, coming back to your point, like the technology is there, but also like there are solutions out there that these teams and communities can use to actually test the systems before they're released to the public, right? Whether it's for elderly or for kids, or put safeguards. So how do you from advising policymakers about potential risks to actually going back to teams who are developing these products to implement the right solution so that it doesn't happen? What does that journey look like, right? Where it's right.
So this is where like the sort of 4-layer framework that we've suggested would come into it. The example we just talked about the chatbot, the grief bots, for example, that is the app developers have designed it in a way that can manipulate people's emotions, maximize for engagement, that kind of thing. So there need to be controls on whether or not it's okay to do that, because that's a product that can cause harm. So there need to be controls on the responsibility of the app developers doing that. Unfortunately, that layer isn't enough Because when we look at this example we're talking about, obviously there are all sorts of other issues, but just with this example, it would seem that the foundation models, they're being tested, like red teaming, etc. It doesn't, whatever's happening there isn't working because they are still harmful outputs. We have seen examples of children dying by suicide following extended interactions, mainly with AI companions, but also with ChatGPT, where that gave really, really harmful advice. So I'm not a tech person, so I can't really comment on the particular ways that foundation model would need to be tested. However, I have taken like expert advice on, is it possible? And been told repeatedly, yes, it can be done. Whatever is happening now isn't working, which is why I'm so in favour of there being regulations in place to enforce certain standards before things are released.
100%. I have two daughters, and when I think through when they should be exposed to AI or use AI, I think that's not a very comforting decision at this point in time, given where the technology stands. The policy framework that you've put right on the 4 layers and the shared responsibility framework that we published are very similar and have been influenced by each other.
So, a similar approach.
Would love to learn more about the policy framework. What feedback you've gotten from the community? I'm sure people have been giving, like, it's been overwhelming, but like some of the key points that people have really linked themselves to, and then how do you see that growing?
Yeah. So a couple of points on that. First of all, I've been sent papers and proposals since releasing it to say this could fit in really well here in order to implement such and such. I've also been sent like highly technical papers to say, yes, this would work from this point of view. I have to hold my hands up and say I don't understand the technical papers, but I'm comforted by the fact that experts are saying, yes, this can be done. That's all really good. Any sort of, we've had huge positive reception to it, but any negative feedback, slightly negative feedback so far has been sort of the nature of, but how do you actually do it? How does this work? And that's a very fair comment. What I would say to that is this is a framework. This is like the scaffolding for many, many different measures to fit within to actually make it work. This is such a huge challenge. There is no way a single organisation could come forward and say, this is how we solve it. Right. So what we've proposed is very much a framework for then multidisciplinary teams and experts to come into and say, look, we've got this little piece of the puzzle. How can we make this better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So good feedback all round, but like yourselves, I believe, we want to iterate on it and get constant feedback so that we can release the next version and the next version, keep making it better and even more meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then going forward, right? I mean, like we have holidays coming up, but how do you, like, what are your plans for the holidays? What are your plans for 2026? How do you see that evolving? How do you see the field, the regulations, technology, and the Safe AI for Children Alliance? What's keeping you up at night from, like, what's keeping you excited?
Well, in terms of, just one thing I wanted to mention, because you mentioned the holidays and it sparked that I thought of this a second ago. I might as well mention it since you mentioned it about having young children, that there are AI like cuddly toys on the market now, a couple of which have already been withdrawn, thankfully. Just something to be aware of, like a cuddly toy with a chatbot in it, essentially, and some of them are given really harmful.
I saw that came in. I saw the news yesterday. I think like OpenAI and one like Fellow Toy or Fellow Toy, some toy company was barred from using OpenAI because they were building AI-powered toys or something, and then those toys were giving sexual advice to kids or something around that.
I don't know if I've seen that actual one, but there have been several. Since we mentioned the holidays, worth being aware of when you're buying Christmas presents. don't buy one of those going forward. It looks like, based on our first year, that we are well placed to make a meaningful difference. What we want to do now is grow, so that because there's only so much a small organisation can achieve. I think we've done a really good job in the first year, but now we need to become a bigger organisation, have like different sections, like a schools team, that kind of thing, a policy expert, so that we can really, really make a sort of a global impact in our next year and the years thereafter. So yeah, that's the answer.
Awesome.
Essentially, we're looking to grow. Yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Since y'all are talking about toys, and I was in fact also reading a lot of articles how they are integrating within like kids' toys and children toys. I in fact recently came across one of the AI platform as well, where actually parents and children together can build what kind of cartoon they can watch, and they can build that entire series of what children should actually watch. I mean, like, I don't know how impactful that is, but because children are watching all the content which AI or any user generated content has been provided, or maybe like YouTube and different channels. But now AI is also kind of changing that now parents should together build that together. I mean, I don't know how it would be like, but yeah, I just came across how to build that.
That's an interesting idea. So like a customized story. Yeah, that could, I mean, I don't know that specific one, but I could see how that could be a fun use of AI. And like, I suppose that sort of also makes me think of like ed tech tools in education. Like, there are creative ways to look at using AI that could potentially help children in education and with creativity and stuff. There's a lot of potential for good. There are risks, huge risks, but that kind of application, as I say, I don't know that one specifically, but those kinds of things are like creative ways of using AI in a good way, potentially.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, I think like that approach could be one way where you can guide children towards like a good outcome. And it also more collaborative, right? Like, I think one of the things that I enjoy is building puzzles, like actual puzzles with my daughters. At home. So like, that's just came to mind with this idea of parents and children collaborating to build a story together, for example, with AI or something.
Yeah, I can imagine that with puzzles as well. And as long as there are effective guardrails in place, and it's been thought through with people who know what they're talking about.
As companies are building these products, and because everyone is just going out and trying to get as many users as possible, irrespective of whether they're in the US or anywhere else, or whether like what age groups they're in, what ethnicities they're in. Like, it's just trying to find more and more people. How should the policies and behaviors be implemented around these to safeguard our future, like safeguard like the kids who are our future?
So it's a challenge. It's definitely a big challenge to which there's no easy answer. But fundamentally, I just think if there's one thing that we should all be able to agree on, is that we're going to have to rise to that challenge to protect children from being harmed. In terms of how that happens, that's one of the things that at the Safe AI for Children Alliance we've tried to put into some sort of a framework. So we've released a campaign that we're calling the Non-Negotiables campaign.
Right.
We have a policy framework that sits alongside that. We're sort of saying that there are 3 non-negotiable baseline standards that we can agree on as a global society that are the minimum standard going forward to make sure AI systems uphold. And that's that AI systems should not produce sexualized images of children, should not be designed to be emotionally manipulative of children, should not encourage children to harm themselves. Unfortunately, all those 3 things are happening, and we need to all work together to make sure they don't. And that framework that I talked about, we've sort of proposed that be done at 4 layers of responsibility. So the foundation model testing, by, I would suggest strongly, independent bodies. And then the design standards in terms of that would be particularly relevant to the emotional manipulation, like the application level.
Right.
Then we have like monitoring of those applications once they're out in the world, and then age restrictions. So we've sort of proposed a 4-model layer of responsibility, a framework for ways of implementing to go within, and the shared responsibility framework that you guys have created, which I think is really great. I think that's the kind of like innovative thinking we need here, because I think that our kind of old ways of doing regulation and responding to harm after it's been done,
that doesn't fly, and that
no,
like we shouldn't wait for that to happen ultimately as a
definitely.
society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely a place for things like that, because there will be cases where things go wrong, but we can't rely on that as the mechanism for dealing with this. Because it's not fair to children to do that, but also AI is different to anything we've seen before in terms of how quickly it's changing and innovating and developing. So by the time we have a policy or regulations together in the way that we've been used to dealing with that and forming them, the AI is going to be doing something different. Like they're going to be things that we didn't think of when we wrote that. So we need a different way of thinking about things, which I do think, going back to your shared responsibility framework, that's the kind of thing we need.
Right. I mean, that's true. I think the way one of the things that we think about is if you're building a product on any of these LLMs, on top of these LLMs, like ultimately it's you who are putting the product out of the market. The LLM providers are not going to take responsibility if something goes wrong, because you have, as a product owner, you have to think through how are you taking responsibilities of if something goes wrong. How are you putting the right safeguards in place? How are you putting the right measures in place to make sure the product works what it's supposed to do, but doesn't deviate towards the harmful content, whether it's kids or the other things, which is a very important piece of responsibility that a lot of people miss. Thank you, Tara. This was awesome. This was really enlightening, and most importantly, I think educational for a lot of people around the world in terms of how to think about benefits versus risks, how to weigh different scenarios of what could potentially go wrong, and how do you put the right safeguards in place, and ultimately come out stronger as a society with AI, with technology helping us for the better rather than for the worse.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you guys are doing as well. Like, it's really encouraging to see. And like, I know this is something, the children aspect is something you've been thinking about for a while and got in touch about quite a while ago now. That's just really, really encouraging to see. So thank you for that as well.